Good afternoon, or whatever it is, wherever you are, and welcome to a thoroughly festive holiday episode of Tilton Talks Crypto, brought to you by SmartFi. Smarter, safer crypto. Um, we, we did it. We went with the holiday theme. Why not? It's kind of cool and it's fun, and especially after a year like this, we all need some fun, right? Let's be honest. We need to kind of have a bit of fun. So in case you don't know, the two on the top of your screen as you're looking, if you're watching, that's Aaron and I. We're the co-hosts. I'm Martin Tillier. I am, as you can see, the resident fool at SmartFi. Aaron is, in fact, it will be even more apparent if I show you the entire ensemble complete with the scarf on the llama. Aaron is our resident Grinch. And Haley here is, as you can see from her hat, our hard-working elf. We fool around and stuff, and she does the actual work. Haley's also here to present us news you can use to read the headlines and to help us to kind of, filter out some topics that are of interest and everything else. She's actually our social media and community manager, and Aaron's our co-founder and CEO, and I'm the head of research. But they're boring for now. I'm the fool. He's the Grinch. She's the elf. We're in holiday mood. Right, we're ready to go.
Cheers!
Indeed, cheers. But there are things going on in the crypto world that are kind of relevant. And I will say one thing before we get into them, Haley. Just generally, this time of year, whatever your faith, whatever your religion, whatever your beliefs, it's a time of kind of rejuvenation and renewal, and looking back on what's been, looking forward to what's happening. That's what we're going to do here. If you're Christian and and for you it represents the time of the birth of Christ, whether you're Christian or not, you can't argue that is anything but a history changing moment, right? And it was significant. It was change. It ushered in a whole new era. If you're Jewish, you're celebrating Hanukkah now and the Festival of Lights, and that the faith and the hope and the miracle that came with it, and all those things. Whatever. If you're Muslim, Ramadan comes a bit later, but you'll be, then looking at that kind of cleansing and change and moving forward. That's what it's all about. New Year itself is about that. So that's what we're trying to do this year too, in this episode. That's what we're trying to do here, is we'll look back at 2022, but bear in mind that all the time we're looking forward to 2023 because we're moving on, right? We are all moving on. All right, so what's going on in the world? Haley, what have we got for us? What do you got for us?
Guys, I think we're the first ever to release this news, right behind Cointelegraph. This was 12 minutes ago, but Brazilian president signs crypto bill into law. So the law included many digital currencies under the definition of legal payment methods in Brazil and established a licensing regime for virtual assets for virtual asset service providers.
My immediate take on that, and it is new to all of us. Don't forget, we're kind of doing this as breaking news, so to speak, as we go. Yeah, great. I know, Aaron, you and I talked about it briefly before, and you had a slightly different take on it, and I think probably a more valid one. So, what was your reaction when you saw it?
Well, but this is kind of more of the same. The longer this goes on, this is going to be what to expect. That there are going to be governments structuring some type of regulation around crypto as user adoption increases. So, yeah, great. And let's keep doing it. We're going to do it the right way.
Seriously, underworld. You put it on a par with, the Pope is indeed Catholic and Liechtenstein is in fact small as news.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Meanwhile, in other news, right? I kind of agree with you. It's just indicative of the inevitable march of crypto into the mainstream and into acceptance.
Yeah. And I think crypto users who believe that that's not going to be the case, it's just one more example that's in order for crypto to meet its user adoption goals and revolutionize what's going on, governments will not allow that to take place until they're part of that innovation, right? And they feel like they're protecting people from themselves. So, the idea behind that is we got to make sure that everybody's engaged and active with their policymakers to make sure that they're making the right policy decisions around crypto and allowing the most free version of that to occur inside their countries or their state or whatever they're going to be. So, you got to get involved.
And that's the point here. And there's kind of a theme to this. But before we get, that we're going to go through with some of the other news items that we wanted to look at today. But before we get to that, let's look at the flip side of the coin and try and keep things light here. When we look at another headline that you noticed during the week, Haley, and what was that about? So here we go.
Let's see. Headline this week: Bitcoin has died. It is dead, and it has died 467 times.
Yeah.
We think cats have 9 lives. Apparently, Bitcoin and crypto itself has 467 and counting. This is something I've pointed out many times in the written word and on these podcasts in the past. The same people who said, I think the first example they found in this article on 99 Bitcoins of an obituary for Bitcoin saying Bitcoin was dead, it would never work, it was dead, was in 2010, right? And since the same people that were saying that in 2010 are saying it today. And back then they were saying it will never be worth anything. Now they're saying the fact that it's only worth $18,000 proves their point. They were wrong then, they were wrong in the middle, and they're wrong now.
Yeah. I remember, I guess old enough to remember this, but when the internet was a fad, right? When people were, in the early, mid to late 90s, kind of depending on where you were and when you started becoming aware of the internet, that was a fad. And it was going to be, it was dangerous to use and all these other things. Same stuff, same argument.
Yeah, exactly the same stuff. It didn't have any real value. It didn't exist. It wasn't on paper. So how could we trust it? Same stuff.
Exactly. Crypto is here to stay.
It's here to stay and it's here to grow, right? And that goes back to the first news article we looked at. I think, and there's another example of it that was in a headline this week, right, Haley?
Oh, yeah. So the next one we have from Coindex is Nigeria to recognize crypto as investment capital. So a proposed bill will lay out crypto's supervisory powers of the Central Bank of Nigeria and the country's securities regulator, as an official said.
Again, more of the same, really. This is just this increasing move of what you're talking about, Aaron, where the inevitability of the recognition of crypto. And I think one of the things that it points to is, it's good news for those of us who believe that crypto generally or Bitcoin specifically or whatever is the future, and that it will become recognized, become legal tender, if you like, in a lot of different places, and we will have a stronger actual use case, as you refer to it, Aaron, a transfer of value or a store of value. And I think that's true. But there's a kind of a warning here, but it's something that you're uniquely positioned to talk about, Aaron, which is that as all this comes, so they recognize it so they can regulate it.
There's that part, but there's a natural inclination for politics. You never underestimate the ability of a politician to take credit for somebody else's innovation, right?
Good.
I mean, that's the way it works. And so the industry starts to create these innovations and these great, fantastic products around crypto and Bitcoin and everything digital asset related. And so they're always behind, well behind the innovation, that now they want to take credit for improving or kind of cleansing the product, cleansing Bitcoin and making it acceptable to people by protecting them from, the bad, quote unquote, people that are around there. So, and I'm talking about that as a former politician. I never did try to take credit for other people's stuff, but I saw that happen a lot.
Absolutely.
And so this is kind of more of the same. They recognize that they can't get rid of it, so they're going to have to modify it, adopt it, regulate it, and structure it in a way that they think is available for their constituents to use, that's acceptable to them, right? So we'll see that, and each country will adopt their own kind of view of what it does and what it shouldn't do, and we'll see how that plays out, right? We're in the middle of that, doing that with the state of Utah right now, which is, well, I think we're doing it the right way here.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. And I think one of the things there, if we could just move on to the next headline, Haley, and take a look at that, because this is kind of relevant to the same subject. Here we go. So, Haley, we got this one, right? Let's not throw the crypto baby out. I'll do your job and tend to say it. Let's not throw the crypto baby out with the crypto bathwater. This was actually on Forbes, which is an interesting place for an article like this in itself. It's written by David G.W. Birch. I don't know David, but I do know that what he says here is actually interesting and worth a read. He's talking about this, this inevitable move to regulate crypto, and as Gultzko pointed out in the chat that's going on out there, that the CFTC just called Bitcoin and Ether commodities. They actually used that word in the indictment of Sam Bankman-Fried. The IRS treats it as income when it's earned or spent or sold, and everything. And so, yes, crypto is already kind of subject to regulation in the US. But what the author's talking about here is the fact that the whole move to regulate needs to be done in a different way. You can't just call crypto an investment asset, as Nigeria did, and then assume that because you've done that, it falls under the same regulation banner as stocks or bonds or whatever, because it's such a different thing. And that's the case that the author makes here, that Birch makes here, is that it has to be treated differently. He actually lays out a case for making cryptography the basis of the regulation of it, which I think makes perfect sense. But just in general, it's that thing that you have to have separate regulation. And that gets back to what you just touched on, Aaron, is going on in Utah, where you're part of the Digital Asset Task Force, and you're working towards that kind of a regulatory framework that recognizes crypto for what it is and includes industry input. So where are you at on that at the moment? What's been happening there in 2022?
Well, we just got done reviewing a couple of different things on the task force around something called a DAO, or decentralized autonomous organization, and the state is working on legislation that'll be out soon in the legislative session coming up in January, that will build a structured recognition of a DAO, like an LLC or a corporation or some other entity that the state officially recognizes, gives it a tax status and the ability for people to form these entities at the state level with a structure that's acceptable, which is super interesting. It'll be first in the country like that, the way that we're doing it. And it'll be innovative, certainly groundbreaking for this structure. And eventually, SmartFi plans to take that same structure and build the community of SmartFi into a DAO, and the assets of SmartFi and all these other things, and transfer that and move that all into there. But we're waiting for these similar structures, because you can't really have a tax status yet for that. But the state recognition will allow an entity to have a taxable status and be able to pay taxes and be able to do these things that will allow it to exist in a decentralized, autonomous way, like in basically governed by software, but also have official recognition from the state and a tax number. So all of these different structures will allow it to officially exist and be recognized as what this task force is doing. There are a couple other things there. One is the sheriff node. When that comes out, we'll talk more about that, but it'll effectively help to deal with fraud, theft, and errors on blockchains, and when those occur, how can you have a trusted partner that can actually intervene and right the wrong that took place, right, and redress that grievance, and a couple other things. But those are the main ones so far with the task force.
I think the most remarkable thing there, and I think it's truly in the holiday spirit of you, Aaron, was that you actually talked about the state allowing you to pay taxes as if it was such a good thing. I think that's the only person I've ever look at it that way, and that's in the spirit of giving that we're in it right now, right? But while you've been doing that, but you've been busy in all sorts of areas. There's a lot been going on at SmartFi, and the purpose of this is to review 2022. So I know one of the things near and dear to your heart was our continued sponsorship of Supercross, right?
Yeah, that was an awesome experience, and people can go back and watch all the the interviews and the other things that we did with SmartFi and Supercross, some of the philanthropic things we did, but also introducing crypto to thousands of new fans that signed up for SmartFi accounts because of the involvement in Supercross that had really no idea what cryptocurrencies were about. So our continued education of those people who signed up on the platform, and our desire to help these people understand what to do with crypto, and expand the user adoption through a sport that I love. My son and I have been riding and racing motocross for a long time, over a decade, and it's something that we love and we're passionate about. So it was great to be involved, and we're grateful to Feld to help us figure out a way to move forward and allow us to do that, become the official platform for Monster Energy Supercross over the last year. It was great experience.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's a fun thing for any company to be involved in something like that, and particularly something like that has such passionate fans. I mean, that's one of the cool things about it, is that the fan base may not be like massive, but it's extremely passionate and dedicated.
Yeah, it's unlike a lot of other sports for sure.
Yeah, it's a unique thing, and kind of to that end, in terms of people coming to the platform who weren't and signing up and whatever. On that basis, one of the things that's been notable this year has been the partnership with Encode in making KYC a thing on SmartFi. Now, for those of you who don't know, it stands for Know Your Customer. It's kind of a regulatory thing in the US that if you're going to be in any way in the kind of money business, if you like, you kind of have to do. And the trick for a company like ours is to make it as easy and straightforward as possible, or at least as not a pain in the backside as possible, right? Yeah. And I think this year has been, we spent a lot of time and effort on that, and the partnership with Encode definitely helped. And I think the KYC process now at SmartFi is, we don't brag a lot, but I think it's one of the easiest, smoothest, fastest there is out there. It really is. Yeah, and secure. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the biggest issues that you have with running a platform is that if you don't know really who's on the platform, and if these people have bad intentions, and you don't have a way to process that, to screen people and understand who's involved in what you're doing, one, you can build up a platform where there's a bunch of bad actors on your platform, and they're always trying to do bad things, right? Nefarious things, and get away with taking assets that don't belong to them. So we've spent years building our KYC AML compliance process, utilizing this year a technology that Encode built that has biometric facial recognition that allows us to really determine if somebody's using a picture of another person and or a video that was taken from somewhere else. And there's a technology involved, and we can't go into a lot of the detail about how that's done, but it can tell the difference between pictures and videos that are not real, that are taken and not live. And that's allowed us to basically weed out a bunch of bad actors on the SmartFi platform that might have gone on that'll never get access to the platform. And we noticed that early on when we launched it, there were different people who would try to sign up to do things on the platform that we didn't want to have on the platform. So that's been very helpful, and it obviously gives confidence to other partners that we have. Some of these announcements that we've been making and kind of alluding to, banking partner, other technology partners, that they can trust the people on the platform are real. It's not, fake accounts doing nefarious things, and assets are safe here. So that was a great addition to what we're doing. We're grateful for the partnership with Encode, and love their technology, and it's made a significant impact on the ability for us to determine who are good participants and who are not.
Yeah, and along the same lines, again, with that ease of access, ease of use thing, big changes towards the end of this year in terms of fiat onboarding, if you like, just converting your US dollars, your yen, your euros, your whatever you use into putting it onto the SmartFi portal as US dollars and then converting it to crypto. We've made that easier and faster and everything else as well, with the addition of Visa and MasterCard options, Apple Pay, improved ACH processes, wire transfers. We do recurring ACHs to make that kind of dollar cost averaging that you and I bang on about so much easier and more convenient for you. Coming up is going to be actually a function where you can make regular purchases of crypto. So you can fund your account and purchase crypto. You can set it all up with a few clicks and then leave it to be, which is kind of what we want people to do, right?
Recurring basis, they can set up a recurring payment to buy, a specific crypto that they like, and not have to sit there and come back over and over and over and set it up. But we've initiated ACH, that's up and running. Visa, MasterCard, debit cards, Apple Pay, wires. We have a variety of those things from different places that allow that transaction, because most people don't start in crypto. In fact, there's almost nobody that does unless you're a miner, right? If you mine crypto, then you have a basis in crypto that starts off with your cash flow in crypto. But most people are not that way. They don't mine it. They have to go buy it somewhere, and they have to convert fiat currency into crypto in the first place. So we're trying to make that as simple as possible. There are a variety of methods that we've implemented, and we'll continue to expand that in the coming year.
And we also trying to expand the choice, if you like, for the community within the portal, on the smart exchange, etc. And one of the things that I know you like about what's happened on that front this year is the support for the FlyAir token, the listing of the FlyAir token on the smart exchange. Yeah. It's for those of you who don't know what FlyAir is, there you go. It's an app. It's kind of, actually Paul, who's running this video and produces these things, described it earlier as kind of Uber for private jets, and that's basically what it is, like a share app for private jets. But that was a big thing for us, right?
Yeah, it was a great partnership, and actually, some of the investors in the Fly app are basically customer of ours already, right, from years ago. And when they started investing in this project, we looked at it and thought it was awesome. We loved the concept, loved the project, and so we decided to support it. And we're going to be doing more of that. We've got more projects coming. There was a question somebody asked about things that are coming up in the future. I think we'll be doing probably another podcast about that at the beginning of the year, about what's happening this year. What are we doing to innovate around SmartFi? But this is going to be more projects like FlyAir. This is a token, ERC20 token that you can buy. This is basically kind of like Sky Miles that you can purchase, but for private jets, right? And so you can be a little more efficient. Not everybody flies a private jet, but you can, let's say you had a party or a group of people that were going to be going somewhere, and instead of buying separate tickets on a commercial airline, sometimes it can be as good or as cost effective as buying a group of tickets on a private jet, right? Depending on where you're going. And then you get to determine when you leave, when you land, all these different things. It makes it way more convenient and funner. And there are a certain group of people that want that service. They're willing to pay more for it. But it is a great use of a cryptocurrency for exactly that, a network on a service like the FlyAir app that you can buy, sell, and trade using a token. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. It's down to that, that practical application of crypto principles, right, and of tokenization. We're all about, and FlyAir is about. I think it's really cool. If you're going to do that, though, you need security. You need, and we've been working on that quite extensively too, in terms of wallets available through SmartFi, using Math Wallet, Zelcore Wallet, and also in terms of giving our community choice in having Atomic Dex come on board, which is obviously part of the Komodo platform that actually is as the name implies, a decentralized exchange. So they can use that for whatever they want to do, as well as the Spark exchange, which is more on a centralized basis. The point being that you have the choice. At SmartFi, the view is that you're grown-ups, you're quite capable of making your own decisions. Our job is to enable you to to act on those decisions, right? And to give you the tools that you need to be successful in crypto. And these are tools that have been proven over time. And we've worked a lot on getting all of those tools in place this year to broaden your choice and make your experience better on the platform.
Yeah, I mean, all of these guys have been great partners that we've worked with. Some of which just added our token unbeknownst to us, which was great. So, the word is getting out about SmartFi and our SMTF token. Also, I think you're probably going to talk a little bit about the Probit listing and other places where you can go buy the token.
Yeah.
But it's, last year was an amazing time for us. Even in the midst of all the turmoil in the crypto markets, we continued to release and hit our objectives and continually move our project forward and grow it and do some things that we haven't done in the past. One of which, after you go up to Probit listing, we'll talk about some of the new loans that we made, new loan types that gave new use for the SmartFi token.
Yeah. And that's really important. That was this year, I can't forget that was a 2022 thing because it seems to be such an intrinsic part of what SmartFi is now. But actually establishing a part of the loan book or reinventing a part of the loan book almost to be loans that are on with projects other than crypto that involve collateral other than crypto. Right. So basically diversifying SmartFi's exposure. And that's one of the things why we, after a year like this, you and I are still here talking on this podcast, right? And SmartFi's still here because there was that foresight, and I'm not just buttering you up, Aaron, I don't do that, but there was that foresight to actually, give that degree of diversification and take on some loans where the collateral was, real estate, vehicles, farm equipment, whatever, something else that was physical assets. And that's really an important part of, as I said, that it's a time of change. It's been a tough year, but there's good news all around. And part of the good news for us is we're still here, right? And that sounds like such a trite thing to say, but actually it's really important in the current environment. And that's partly why.
Yeah, we can illustrate, in a very basic way, when all the things were happening in June and July with other crypto lenders like Celsius and BlockFi and the other groups, they really didn't have the ability to recover from a downturn in crypto prices because the collateral was collapsing in its value. And there's no place to go to offload $1 billion worth of crypto. The crypto markets are reasonably sufficient, but they're relatively small, right? And for user adoption to really occur in the crypto markets, there's got to be more use cases other than just algorithmic trading. You can see what happens, like Terra Luna, right? Or all of these guys that were putting all of their assets into trading and borrowing against other assets to trade and started levering up and building up leverage inside of an ecosystem, an economic basis, which is so ironic because it is what led to the invention of Bitcoin in the first place was the highly levered markets in lending, for mortgages. And the same mistakes are made over and over and over again. And so you can't do that. What you have to do is do deleveraged structures, which means dollar for dollar, or actually inverted LTVs, right? Loan to value, which means you're only giving 70 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar for those assets so that there is headroom for devaluation of assets, that the dollar value is held stable, right? You don't blow up and everybody goes bankrupt because they're trading over and over on levered assets. So what we did is made additional loans last year that we worked through this year that structured that test, what we thought was an all-important test to see what would happen if we were lending against real estate. What are we doing? Lending against small business equipment loans. And when the markets for crypto were coming down, the markets for those assets were staying stable. So at the beginning of the year, most of our loans, about 70% were in crypto. At the end of the year, most of our loans are in these other assets. So the token is safe. You can redeem it. You can do all these other things that you want to do with it. And user adoption of Bitcoin and crypto from our perspective and our SMTF token has gone up and proved the use case behind what we're doing works, right? Is to take a value from crypto and bring it into the space where a lot of the people that have loans from us don't know that it was funded by crypto. They don't care. And what better way to show user adoption when people are using it and don't even know it, right?
Exactly. Inadvertent usage, but it's cool. There was a vision to it, and as I said, the fact that we're still here and we're talking about this now is proof enough that it's worked. People say, well, the token's gone down this year. Well, no, I'm not going to use that phrase because I know you strive not to cuss or to be around it, Aaron, but know something, Sherlock, right? The year we've had, of course, it's gone down, but it's not gone away. And that, and I know that sounds like very much like a humble brag type thing, but it's not. It's actually really important, and it proves the use case, and it lays the foundation for going forward, and that's the point. We're going forward. That said, the purpose of today is somewhat to look back, right? So, a lot's been going on outside that as well. We haven't just been sitting around doing all these fun things with the platform and on the dev side and things. We've actually been out there spreading the word. You've done a couple of things there. Mind Disrupt conference around about the middle of the year. You gave a keynote speech, I believe, at BRC.
Yep. We talked about that same topic about what went wrong in the lending markets as a lender who has survived, right? And actually continued to shift and make changes and actually expand our model. It was great to be able to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a cool thing. Actually, I think that was Doug we just saw. He was one of the guys in the flyer. Yeah. Anyway, it's fun to see these people flashing through that I've met through the year or whatever through my association with SmartFi, and you see these little clips that these little montages that Paul puts together, and it's like, oh, there's so and so. It's really fun. Anyway, so there was that one, and that was kind of pretty cool. Being there, doing that, but it didn't just end at Mind Disrupt. You went on to a couple of other things that you did on the year. You did FreedomWorks. You went to FreedomWorks and talked there to the people there about on their kind of crypto conference in DC. It was like Mr. Tilton goes to Washington, right?
Yeah, it was. FreedomWorks is an awesome organization that they advocate for freedom, obviously, and in economics and all kinds of policies. So they try to influence policymakers to adhere to constitutional principles of freedom and the rights of individuals to exercise their freedom over their property. So when we were there talking about cryptocurrencies and the role that cryptocurrencies can play in that future, was able to spend a lot of time talking to other people who are guests there and doing really cool things in crypto, and then had about a 45-minute discussion and Q&A about lending, about the structures around cryptocurrencies and kind of the use cases for the future and where this is all going, at least in SmartFi's opinion. So it was great.
Yeah, again, it's getting out there, it's spreading the word. To me, one of the things it says, I really am buttering you up a lot today, but that you're out there recognized as an industry expert, as an important voice in these things. And for SmartFi, that's important because that all lends credibility to us. If people believe in you, then they believe in the project. And to have these major conferences and institutions and people do that, it is really cool. On that, but with that too, this podcast itself, Tilton Talks Crypto, this year, we've had some kick butt guests, right? I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, we really have. We've had some
foremost experts in DAO legislation, and other policymakers, Senator Hemmert, right?
Yeah.
Senator Gilmore, and commissioners that have done first of a kind things.
It was, I think for me personally, some of the highlights came a bit. Bear in mind, we didn't start Tilton Talks Crypto until it really kind of grew out of the first AMA we did. When was that? Back in July, or I think, or maybe July or August. That was only when it came. But certainly, Senator Cullimore there. I mean, to have a state senator on a podcast like this is always interesting and shows the level of thing. Amelia was a great guest. I will
Yeah.
say that she was dynamic, fun to listen to. Just a perfect guest for a show like ours.
Very accomplished, obviously, in the blockchain space, right? Doing these first of the kind things that, utilizing blockchain technology for a government. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Rob Lamb, you can see now that actually that was our most downloaded episode subsequent to it being recorded.
Yeah.
And I think that's to do with the subject, and it's the subject that you touched on earlier, DAO formation and the laws around that, and that's a subject that people are interested in. I think my personal favorite was Dan. I basically spoke to Dan one-on-one, Dan Held, and Dan's a big figure in the crypto world right now. He's on Cointelegraph's list of candidates for the most influential person in crypto in 2022. And there he was for the full length of a show with us there, talking to us about central bank digital currencies, about the concepts of freedom around crypto and around Bitcoin, particularly in his case and whatever. Going through a few others, there's Natalie Brunel, again, major figure in the crypto world, that came onto our podcast, talked with us about her vision, which is a little different for certainly Bitcoin in the future, and how she's used it in the past to help with things like something that's in the news now, Afghan women paying for their own education, very much in the news right now with the recent move.
Yeah, using it as a checking account instead of having their checking accounts canceled and taken away from them.
And really fascinating stuff about that, ultimate use case of crypto. Kadan was fun. That was actually Kadan's one of ours. He's our chief technical officer here at SmartFi, but he's also the lead on the Komodo platform, and he's an immensely respected figure in the development world and blockchain development world. And it was fun if for no other reason than he was celebrating big time, because Komodo had just launched the web browser version of Atomic Dex, and he'd been up all night. Kind of overseeing the launch, but also celebrating a bit, I think. So it was kind of a fun one and a very, very interesting one. And recently we started the occasional series Women in Crypto, which is kind of cool because we had, the women with all different levels of experience in the world of crypto in presenting things in a fun and entertaining way that hopefully was very, very educational and, for people. Done a couple of those. We did one recently on what is Bitcoin. I think come the new year, we're going to do one on the Ethereum network and Ether. They're fun to do because they make you take a deeper look at them, but hopefully they're fun and informative for people out there too. So
give people an experience and maybe some knowledge and information that they can use to take advantage of what's available in cryptocurrencies and how to move people's economic futures forward, utilizing the advantages that crypto gives.
Absolutely. We do want to take some community questions this time because our community, we are our community, so to speak. We are a community, and we've had a few on a couple of subjects. We probably won't be able to give any of them the exact time they deserve because we can't go on forever. But let's just delve in briefly. The first one I want to deal with, and it's one that's come up in different forms in a lot of ways in our community recently. How does the buyback guarantee actually work? How does the buyback work? Or what's behind it? How can we do it? Is another question that we get asked. So if you can just explain a little bit about what the 100% buyback guarantee is and how it works, I think it would help everybody.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, and we kind of touched on it before earlier that if you have a cryptocurrency where its use case is really based around algorithmic trading, it can all go to zero really quick, right? We've seen that in some other structures because it has to be tied to some real assets and real value and all these other things instead of just zero-sum trading that has an edge, which is the majority, if not all, crypto at this point, even Bitcoin and others. But what we do is the use case for SmartFi token is to fund loans. And so we take the net proceeds from people that buy the SMTF tokens. We fund loans, and then it's those loans and the repayment of those loans that allow us to offer a buyback guarantee on those tokens. So that if whatever price you bought the token at, and it depends on where you buy it, right? Because it's not everywhere that you buy it has this buyback guarantee. But there are various places, Probit and other places, if you register your purchase or the Smart Cycle, but you can register your purchase. And then if anytime after a year you don't like the price for whatever reason, you can get your original purchase price back. So it offers you safety or a hedge, some stability. We had a comment here earlier by a user named Broken Shadow that talked about stability and stable coins and having people use stable coins for user adoption. Yes, that's one way to gain user adoption, but it doesn't allow the ability for taking advantage of what could potentially be an upside in a token, right? Stablecoins, by their very nature, don't have an upside. They're designed to be stable. But in this case, SMTF has kind of the best of both worlds. It has these assets in the form of loans that back the token in terms of redemptions. It has some limitations around it where you've got to, you don't get that buyback guarantee until after a year. A stable coin you can use just about any time for the buyback guarantee, but it never has the potential to be worth more, right? So the advantages of the SmartFi token give you kind of the both, that upside potential. Doesn't mean it's always going to be worth more, but it means that at any time after a year, you can get a buyback guarantee if you don't like the purchase price of the token for whatever reason. And that's the buyback guarantee.
It's actually quite simple. I think what confuses people is how we can do it in the underlying kind of mechanism. And I think that was a really good explanation. We can do it because it has real utility. It has something underpinning value that we can fall back on. And so, we've been doing it. The token's been out for more than, quite a bit more than a year. We've been, and in the first couple of months, it ran up quite significantly. So there would have been people who bought then, registered, bought where they were supposed to, registered where they were supposed to, and are now coming back to us and getting and using that 100% buyback guarantee. Yeah. That I think was more because of that extraordinary initial run up and drop back than anything. And hopefully it'll be one of those things that is trusted and understood to the extent where it won't actually be needed.
And what it's designed to do is give people confidence that even if the price of the token goes down in the secondary market, they have the confidence to hold that. So that when it goes the other way, things are going to go up, they're going to go down, depending on where it is, right? There's no guarantee on any of this, but it's going to move up and down. And there's an opportunity to go to the secondary market and get a return on the token if they do what they're supposed to and use their own skill, their own knowledge, their own understanding of it. We don't give a guarantee on the token for a return, but there's the ability to do that in the secondary market. We've saw that, the token went from 70 cents all the way to, just about $4 and then it's come back down again. But that's just normal with the market cycles, right? The entire economy is coming back down, but it's going to go back up at some point. Right? That's what markets do. Go up and go down.
I think it's that old thing Oscar Wilde once said, that the problem with the youth of today is they know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And that's kind of it's a general distinction that people make, but there is a difference between price and value. As a long time trader, somebody made a living out of in dealing rooms around the world for a long time. It's one of the first things I learned was that price and value are different things, and if you can understand the difference and identify where they diverge, it can be a good thing for you. And that's one of the things that I think SMTF represents at the moment. But that's my opinion. I'm not putting that out there as a corporate opinion. Anyway. Moving on from that question, the second question that we've had a couple of times was more about expansion. When can we plan for SMTF to be on listings on exchanges like Binance or whatever, or KuCoin or whatever you want to say? What are plans for getting on more and bigger exchanges? Where are the plans for expansion?
Yeah, to a certain extent, that's around market demand, right? We could go pay a bunch of money, get on those exchanges and do a bunch of things, but we would rather have the organic growth. We don't want to pay for those kind of things. We don't have to pay for that kind of stuff. You can go trade it on Probit, which is a great exchange. You can buy it on our exchange. You can buy it on Smart Cycle. So it's available. You can get it on the Atomic Dex, and other wallets that you can store it. So it's available. It's out there. I think there's a complete list on our website of where you can go get it. And in the future, we believe that other exchanges are going to list it because of its utility and its unique nature for the buyback guarantee. We don't just partner with any exchange to give the buyback guarantee. That's an important distinction because with Probit and others, we have to we want to make sure that the people are buying it and the exchanges that are on are solvent, quality exchanges. So we try to vet them as much as we can to make sure that the customer, if they're holding their assets, are not going to lose it. But that's not something we can guarantee. But on these other exchanges, just make sure that if you go to it and they have the SmartFi token, that you trust that exchange. And if you don't, there are plenty of exchanges that you can trust and get the buyback guarantee for the token.
And to that end, we're actually working right now on, and should be very early next year, a decentralized exchange as part of the kind of SmartFi ecosystem. I don't think I'm out of line mentioning that, am I right now? I think we've talked about it as a possibility. But anyway, that's for another time. The third question that we picked up on was, I think was kind of interesting. How does SMTF differ from Bitcoin, given that there aren't asset classes? I assume the question means in crypto that people just buy and hold for profit now. I kind of get what I think I get the gist of this question. I may be misinterpreting it, but it's basically, it boils down to that thing of why should I buy SMTF, right? I mean, and I think that we've answered that here today, actually, kind of inadvertently. We didn't set out to make a SmartFi commercial, but we've kind of answered it in a way, because we've talked about the use case, we've talked about the utility, we've talked about the assets that back the loans being diversified. We've talked about all the reasons why you should probably consider buying and holding SMTF. And those are it. And it's hard to make a better case than we've already made, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, people just have to understand, the difference between certain cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin. Bitcoin's use case is around a payment system, right? And when we looked at that, we thought, well, let's extend that to do what real functioning economies do, is they need to have credit to expand and create more GDP. And that credit creation function of SmartFi's token is very critical to its use case and what it does. And it also is, you can use it, SmartFi, to pay things, but you can use it to fund loans, which is more bank-like, but not a bank, right? Yeah. And we're not guaranteeing anybody a return on any of these things and all these structures, but it has a buyback guarantee, which we think is superior to just about anything else out there.
And that's why you're all here, right? Yeah. I tell you what, to echo something I said earlier, that's why we're here. That's why we're still here after a year like this. Fun looking back on a year like this, because actually one of the things I think that I realized as I look back was, it feels like right now that it was a year of doom and gloom, but that's actually the last couple of months, and that's more to do with the media representation than the reality of crypto out there in the world. Crypto out there in the world is doing its thing. It's marching on. That inevitable thing that we started this show with of adoption is happening, and recognition is happening. And we can have all the big headlines and all the sky is falling stuff that we want, but the inevitable progress is taking place. And if you want to be a part of that, I don't think there's any community better to be a part of it than at SmartFi. It's kind of why I'm here. But I can certainly recommend it. If you haven't checked us out, go to the website, smartfi.com. Check out all the amazing stuff that's there, information, tools, education, applications, everything you need. It's all there, right? As I said, not intended to be a SmartFi commercial, but I'm proud of where I work. Don't forget, every week, somebody wins $50 of SMTF, right? There are certain conditions, but they're not arduous. You have to be verified on the SmartFi portal. You have to leave a question or a comment that really kind of stimulates us and makes us think, and you will get rewarded. And so check that out, and don't forget that next week. Oh, actually, forget it next week, because we won't be here next week.
Yeah, right? We won't be here. We're taking a week off. Yeah.
We're taking a week off for the holidays next week, the week between Christmas and New Year. Nothing happens and nobody cares when it does, so we decided we won't just be here talking to ourselves. And we will be back first week in January, back and better than ever, as a sports host says here all the time. And we'll move into the new year, and we'll move into it with the kind of hope that the season dictates. It's a time of change. It's a time to look back, and it's more importantly, it's a time to look forward. That's what we're doing at SmartFi. Hopefully that's what you're doing in your own lives. And if you are, have a incredibly happy holiday season and a healthy and most importantly in some ways prosperous new year. Look forward to seeing you next year.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.